It looks like it's the 19th day, I guess. The 19th day of December 2023, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And this is the Ochelli Effect. So, not even going to ask you if you're looking for this show, because if you found it, you had to be looking for it. Anyway, it is what it is. It's Tuesday, and we're going live. And what are we going live with? Well, there is a gentleman who creates a lot of different media out there, actually. If you go to johnnyvedmore.com, you can see lots of stuff. But also, he's got another website, which we'll probably hear about. But that's not the main focus of tonight's discussion. There is a video series that I believe started to drop on December 15th. And, well, I had a little trouble. I looked at it at first, and I said, well, this looks like it's on a subject that I've seen discussed before. But it's got a strange title, and it's got one of those titles that, I don't know, makes you think like it might be a Netflix documentary or something, right? But not related to the things that it's related to. And yeah, okay, so here we go. What is the name of this thing? What's going on? Well, we're gonna find out all that stuff, and it is available on YouTube. I'll give you the link in with the show notes, so you can go see at least part one for yourself. The trailer, all that stuff. I'll give you social media so you can follow up on this show, that's for sure. But the explanation is going to have to come from my guest, because on the surface, especially to a normie out there, it might be really complicated. And indeed, after I find out how he's doing, we're going to play a clip and show you just how complicated that can be really fast, just in audio form, even though we are creating a video for tonight's show. So, Johnny, how you doing tonight, first of all, sir?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me on. I'm really buzzed to have a conversation, and with a man who knows as well. Really excited.
Well, I appreciate you. Of course, we could also check you out under something called NEWSPASTE, right? And that's how you spell it, all one word.com.
Yeah.
But again, not the topic for tonight's show. I want to talk to you about this video. And forget it. We're going to play the clip. And why is it confusing? I'm going to give a little descriptor afterwards. But you and I are just going to sit and take a listen to this along with the audience, and they're going to recognize a lot of what they're going to hear. But when I tell you what's going on the screen and things, you might start to think differently, and then you're going to wonder why you're searching for Stanley. Oh, I blew it, didn't I? Hold on. We'll get to it. Johnny, hold on. We're going to play this clip, and like I said, you and I are just going to listen. Maybe we'll go through a minute or so. We'll see where a natural point to stop is, okay?
Awesome.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about
I'm just going to pan this down a little bit for you guys, because I'm going to tell you what's going on the screen. Great stuff. You're seeing headlines. You're obviously hearing historic speech. You're also taking a look at some details related to King's assassination, etc., including this part where Bobby Kennedy announces it just a few months before his own assassination in 1968. Well, let's keep going.
Martin Luther King. I ask every citizen to reject the blind violence that has struck Dr. King, who lived by nonviolence. I pray that his family can find comfort in the memory of all he tried to do for the land he loved so well.
I'm going to go back to the video clip, but I need to drop in this commentary. The awful human being that was speaking there, the former president of the United States, the kind of guy who would pick up a dog by its ears, no kidding, who, was, look, if you don't know that LBJ wasn't exactly, a clean-cut American icon, welcome to the show and welcome to planet Earth. But, I mean, the fact that he's sitting there poorly reading, a statement, I pray for his family, it almost sounds as bad as the night after the assassination when he got off the plane and said, I will do my best, and that is all I can do. Very robotically reading through instead of, human sentimentality. Oh my God, this is a tragedy. A man that was moving mountains literally that was moving people, that was moving masses. Disingenuous in the dictionary. See, disingenuous. Anyway, sorry. I'll return back to the clip. I just had to drop that in. Sorry.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
When King took the pulpit of the Bishop Charles Mason Temple on April 3rd, he sought to rally his supporters for a peaceful march, then scheduled for April 9th. He warned against the violence that had marred a previous protest, lest violence overshadow the justice of the.
Now, obviously, we're beginning to hear a narrator, and we're looking at historical footage, and I'm going to stop this here because it's just the setup, mind you, for this video, and it's the framing device. It's well done. First of all, I just want to tell you that just visually, this looks like the kind of thing that people pay a lot of money for. And later on, you're going to see some people that get paid a lot of money, actually, to do this kind of work, who I might be familiar with in one way or another, who are in the research community, because I'm part of that assassination research community. And I obviously have decried repeatedly the decapitation of the intellectual movement in the United States in 1968, the literal decapitation of people that were, sorry, I'm going to use a dirty word, progressive. And I don't mean progressive in today's sense, but in a very real world sense at that time. This is a very emotional setup, Johnny. And to me, it's like very, very hard and heavy. And it's one of the things, this is why I've had to study JFK's assassination, because of the effect that it actually had on our society. Not because, oh my, the big savior was killed. I'm not one of those guys, not at all. I'm one of the people who says, you know, we wouldn't have been in Vietnam and had a whole generation scarred by that war, my generation, in fact, because that was our fathers, our grandfathers, our uncles. You know, we wouldn't have had that entire generation marred by the destruction of our family units, of our core people, of our men in America under false pretenses via the Vietnam War, had somebody not fired the first shot in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963. So that is why I study that assassination intensely. Now, enough of my personal motivations aside, all of these things matter because there was a reshaping of society going on in the 1960s, not the romanticism of the great hippie movement and all these things. Like I said, I got a lot to say about just the opening of what you did here, but I got to get out of the way and let you explain what it is we're doing, how it is we get to who the hell is Stanley anyway, because there's a first name that doesn't come off very often anywhere else, and how this is going to tie to, God help us, because during the opening rush that I didn't play, where there's just music, who do we see in the, in the graphics? We not only see Dr. King, we not only see, some very familiar names like Gloria Steinem and George H.W. Bush, I'm very certain, was in there as well. A bunch of people, historical scenes from the Lorraine Motel, Bobby Kennedy, etc. All these things are rushing at you before we even get to the historical clips being played. And to a normie, like I said, an average run-of-the-mill, I accept history as history is. I believe LBJ's biography by Caro is probably completely accurate. Guy who, takes it at face value that what he learned in school might be correct, is looking at this going, this doesn't make any sense to start with. It does to me. But now I turned it over to you. Help us through this, and let's act like I don't know what the hell you're talking about, please, so we can explain it to the listener, because I want them to go see this part of the series and, the other things you do as well. But a big focus on this, because this, to me, is not only extremely well done, but it's fascinating. It looks like the kind of thing somebody would have spent a lot of money on, and I'm hoping you didn't, because, I'm thinking that if you know me, you don't make a lot of money. Because none of my friends make a lot of money. But Just saying.
You're right.
Okay.
I don't make. I'm bust. I'm bust. I am a penniless broke. I wrote the soundtrack. I did all the editing. I sourced all of the stuff. But I'd already spent about a year, maybe more, researching the articles that I wrote that these are all based on. Now this first series, so there's 18 episodes definitely mapped out. Each
Wow.
one of them will focus. And what I wanted to do was, I saw the long game. I saw the whole story being told, but each story has like all of these different things that this person who ties the thread of this story together. All of these stories are individual stories that need context. And a lot of the time, it's really hard for people to understand why you should be concerned about why that person's been involved in that and that and that and that and that. And this is a story like that. Instead of being someone who focuses in on just the saucy stuff, I want to investigate. I'm an investigative journalist. That's what I do. That's my thing. So I discovered this trail about, oh God, it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And it was a strange rabbit hole indeed. I had an encounter with one of the Epstein victims who came into my life for about a year and a half, messaging me, getting me to help her out here, write a story about this person here, or investigate a person. I don't just write a story. I go and investigate someone. And
well, before anybody gets thrown off, just really quickly, sorry, not to be offensive here, but just because of your accent, you said Epstein, and most people are used to hearing Epstein. And by the way, that was one of the reasons why I got kicked off of YouTube, because allegedly I was cyberbullying Jeffrey Epstein, who was dead. And we are talking about that particular Epstein, because there's a lot of Epsteins in the world, Johnny, right? That's the guy we're talking about.
Yeah. We're talking about that. And the supposed victim is a lady called Maria Farmer. And once she turned on me, she tried to get me to. It was a very complicated story, but I had to verify somebody for a podcast that she was putting forward, and that person turned out to have 8 different identities and be completely spent 10-15 years in jail and was claiming to be something else, and it was really hard to work out what was going on, and so that didn't work out, and she got very angry with me and she turned on me, and I didn't understand what was going on anymore.
Can I just ask you a couple of questions about that right there?
Yes.
Because look, I go through this all the time. I can tell you that there's probably, I don't know, 20 different podcasts a year that I have to cancel. Because I start to look into something, I begin to look into it, and I've made a couple mistakes and let somebody on that I should have vetted much better. It's happened over the years. You do this for 10 years, you're going to make a couple errors. But majority of the time, when I've got somebody who claims to be a witness, and I don't mean somebody who's offering an opinion an outsiders look at, or I've been a journalist and I've written articles on it. Look, anybody can do that. But when you claim to be somebody in a particular position who was at a particular place, almost like you're claiming as a matter of fact in a courtroom that you were there, well, I'm sorry, I have to have verifiable information that cross-references, that's independent of you, to prove that you're telling me the truth. Now, sometimes that's very difficult, because you could be in a circumstance where somebody's making a claim and you got to kind of take it on faith because there was only 2 people in that room. One of them's dead, or one of them would definitely not. Look, if she's in a circumstance, let's just say theoretically, where it's just her and Epstein in the room, and she's describing something without videotape, we got a problem, because I have to take her word. But if I can prove she was there, I can prove that she had been in the area, I can prove that at the very least she was in the country. Things like this, right? You go through this all the time, and quite frankly, you wind up running around in circles sometimes, producing nothing, because you don't feel good about what you've investigated. You don't feel as though it's it's something that can be corroborated correctly, right?
Listen, what I do is as an investigative journalist, and people who know my work know that I find the things no one can find. That's my thing. And I know that sounds big-headed, but go read my articles. I'm the guy who discovered Klaus Schwab's dad was a Nazi. I discovered he went through a CIA-funded course, Kissinger's International Seminar. I investigated that inside and out, and revealed it all. I've revealed so many different things from investigate, because I look at things and I try and see all of the different angles, and then I don't stop at the thing that everybody stops at. So this one victim, I got to say supposed victim, because I can promise you the story fell apart very soon after. I had to investigate her to understand what was going on. I went down that rabbit hole and I discovered she had been in a relationship with a man called Stanley Pottinger and a business with a man called Stanley Pottinger. And Stanley Pottinger was one of the lead Epstein victims' lawyers. And I was like, this Stanley Pottinger and this business they're in together with David Bowie, who's also one of the people behind the Epstein victims legal case. This is all very interesting. What are they doing already with a woman who's meant to be in hiding, who's actually registered at their business 2 years before she's telling everybody she's in hiding. In actual fact, I found her not in hiding at all. She's out. She's got her own Facebook. She's got her own website. She's for the past like 20 years she's been out there. And so the whole thing started to crumble. But I didn't, you can go down that road of investigating Maria Farmer. I tell you, it'll lead to you pulling your hair out. But what I got interested was this Stanley Pottinger character. So I read a couple of articles that made me feel that, oh, well, he's not exactly who he says he is. And he's got this big backdrop, like this is what I did. This is what I did. So I went on this journey, and it was a journey, and I had friends on this journey, and it was crazy, and it pulled apart my life. I mean, it wrecked my life. Someone told me what I had to write in the last article. That's how serious it was. Someone told me, who I was very, very, very close to, told me what I had to come to the conclusion of, and it was completely the opposite to what the conclusion was. And that's how serious it was. And I went back in time, like I always do, and I pulled apart who is John Stanley Pottinger, and I got back to his father, 33-degree Freemason, a part of the Scottish Rite, city commissioner in Dayton, Ohio, a fourth city commissioner to die in a row while in office. So you don't really want that job. But after he died, John Stanley Pottinger's brother became a city commissioner. He actually ends up faking his own kidnapping so he can traffic a girl across state lines to have sex with her on a boat. And so there's a whole backstory there that's really interesting. But John Stanley Pottinger, a man who goes to Harvard, he is the chairman of everything. He is the lead quarterback. He is the man. He is Stan the man. Everything he does, he succeeds at. By the time he gets out from doing all of his time at Harvard, he joins a law firm, Broad Curry Schultz. He tries one or two cases. It's not many cases. It seems very suspicious. Then he's picked up in this Republican Party sort of network, which is, of course, affiliated with the FBI and the CIA and loads of different other things. And he goes within this network and becomes quite high up really quickly in Republican Party selection committees. And then he gets aboard 1969. He's brought on board of the Department of Health, Education and Welfare under Nixon. And then in 1970, he's given head of civil rights and desegregation. That's his job. From 1970 to 1973, he's in that role. He's making a name for himself. He's going around. He's freeing making the schools fair, and he's creating his narrative so he can commit his crimes later on. That's how people these people work. They have 3 years where they deep cover and they show everybody how lovely and fluffy and caring they are, and then they do all of the nefarious stuff. So by the time he gets in as Assistant Attorney General in 1973, well, it's already all hell's breaking loose in Washington. I mean, people cannot imagine what it would be like to walk into the Justice Department in 1973 as Watergate's kicking off, as the Saturday Night Massacre's going on, as Elliot Richards. I got this brilliant clip during the Watergate episode. I think is the next episode to come out on the 22nd. Then there'll be 5 in a row over Christmas. There's 5 in a row episodes. The Watergate episode's got this wonderful scene of Elliot Richardson standing on the stage, and everybody in the Justice Department is giving him a round of applause for being so brave and there's this whole battle. Nixon tries to just sack everybody, but it doesn't go well, and Haig and people are left in there, and then there's this awkwardness, and it's really the time when everything starts to crumble really quickly, and that's where Stanley Pottinger is. He's in this mayhem, so he deals with loads of things all of a sudden. Who is John Stanley Pottinger? He's already got my attention, and I'm going through history and I'm discovering he plays a central role in the biggest moments in history.
Okay, hold on. He's got your attention, okay? But we just went through the 50th anniversary of Watergate, right? Where people made brand new documentaries, people made brand new movies, TV series. They released brand new books, stuff we never told you before, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I don't remember this guy being a character in any of those things. I don't remember him being notable. I'm just saying there is a public-facing persona for these guys, right? And that could be kind of unassuming. Yes, he's a powerful person, sure. If you know the names of everybody, you might know his name, but otherwise sort of unassuming. And yet, sort of like all of a sudden, maybe a guy's working for one of the big lingerie manufacturers in the world for some reason, and ends up with a lot of his money for some reason, and is also at a girls' school for some reason. Nobody pays attention at first until. But here's the thing about this. The chaos you're describing in 73 is really huge, because you're talking about multiple agencies that are normally competing with each other now going after one another. I contend that the CIA actually colluded to take Richard Nixon out of the equation because he was about to upset apple carts here. Big time.
Yeah, completely. Right? I mean, part of the Watergate episode looks at Helms because of. I mean, wait. Let me explain to you.
Oh, yeah,
1973. Please. Stanley Pottinger. He's Assistant Attorney General. They start throwing him at the big cases now. He's made his narrative. They start throwing him at the big cases. So first of all, everybody's busy with the Saturday Night Massacre. All of the chaos going on in Washington. Wounded Knee happens, and basically Stanley Pottinger is the only one in the Justice Department apart from Frizzell who goes to deal with it, and they're the representatives who are trying to calm down the standoff at Wounded Knee, which is of course the Lakota Oglala Sioux in Native Americans who had a standoff with members of the FBI and other forces about the treatment of Indian people, led by Russell Means, Pocahontas' dad in Disney.
Well, there's other things going on in America too, other protests that are not necessarily as big as Wounded Knee, that are getting out of control, that are causing problems. You have a leftist movement which is very violent in America. Everybody forgets that. The very violent leftist movement where you had bombings and things that were being planned, thwarted, etc. I mean, there is a whole lot on everybody's plate at this point. Not the least of which is, let me keep firing attorney generals until I get Bork to actually do what I want. Nixon, which everybody focuses on, but meanwhile, that was not even half the story. And, oh, by the way, Vietnam, not exactly going well. So, you put all these things together. Go ahead.
So you've got the Stanley Pottinger being sent, and it ends up he deals with the aftermath of Wounded Knee, where everybody basically gets arrested all of the time and harassed, and even though all the cases are thrown out of court, that's part of the aftermath of Wounded Knee. But Stanley Pottinger also ends up being involved in Kent State massacre, the grand jury at the Kent State shootings, and organizing that in a way that ended up with no indictments. There was charges, lesser charges, but no real big charges. There was 8 indictments, but there was no real justice. But then everybody praised him as being all wonderful. He's been involved in, he's a guy who stayed on. He got extra permission to stay on under Carter eventually. He was on under Nixon, on under Ford, and he ends up staying on under Carter to end up finishing the Watergate investigation, where he says he's the one who interviews Helms himself. So the head of the CIA, Stanley Pottinger, is the guy who goes and interviews the head of the CIA and sorts it all out. And no, it's fine. He's, there's going to be no charges. Everything's fine. I interviewed Helms myself, and I'm the hero. He signs off the Kent State massacre. He signs off the assassination of Martin Luther King. No conspiracy found. Looked through all the evidence. Kent State looked through all the evidence. Alan Kafora later and others produce a tape that says, shows there may have been an order to fire, and it looks like there's an order to fire, but at the time, Stanley Pottinger is the one who kind of seals up everything and is the one to introduce for the state. He looks like the hero in that case, and then this leads up to, he's involved in all of these cases, and then this leads up to Orlando Letelier and the assassination of Orlando Letelier outside Embassy Row as part of Operation Condor, which was a mixed Latin American intelligence operation that didn't only do operations on Latin America but around the world, and that was a brazen attack. They blew Orlando Letelier up outside the Chilean embassy on Embassy Row. His assistant Ronnie Moffett also died in the attack, and it was Pottinger who's at this point goes with Eugene Popper, who's in charge of the case, and they go to who is one of Pottinger's very best friends, George H.W. Bush, who's the director of the CIA at that time. And basically, Pottinger and Bush get Popper to agree with a plan to allow CIA to use domestic surveillance of Americans under the pretext, oh look, we need to look for this Operation Condor and what's happening, so we may as well start at home. And that was against
the charter of the CIA on its establishment.
Who signs that off? Who goes home? Who goes? Pottinger is the one who goes back. It says in the book about Orlando Letelier, Assassination on Embassy Road, it says Pottinger goes back to the Justice Department, signs it off, and comes back, and it's done.
Yeah, well, but and all these things are going on, by the way, which lead to, guess what? The Rockefeller, the Pike Commission, the let me think here. What's another good one here in that time period? Let's see. We got Rockefeller, we got Pike, we got. There's another good one there, too, before we get to the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1976, when they established that. And H.W. Bush becomes the head of the CIA. No, before that, there was a bunch of things where they were looking into this collaboration, this overlap between crime, the different intelligence agencies. What did the FBI know, the CIA, not just regarding the assassinations of King and Kennedy, who they looked into with the HSCA, but a whole bunch of stuff. What was going on with ZR Rifle? What was happening with the, the Operation Mongoose type stuff, which was all about kill Castro. All of these things.
Weather Underground stuff.
Weather Underground. Well, then you got the House on Un-American Activities. All this stuff is swirling around at this time. And this guy, no big deal. He's just the guy who wound up talking to Helms.
He's a guy at top of every single level, and this first series has 6 episodes. There's going to be 6 episodes to the first 3 series. This first series has 6 episodes. I've done everything in them, even down to the soundtrack. I wrote the soundtrack to every single part. Everything has been done by me. I tried to make it so digestible for everybody that it crosses boundaries, and that it's segmental, so that it could be like bite-sized piece, but you could also watch it all together and it works as a larger piece. But these first 6 episodes are like Wounded Knee, Kent State, Watergate, Martin Luther King, Orlando Letelier, and his girlfriend. His girlfriend's really important. He started dating her when it was 1974, and he was with her for 10 years, and her name is Gloria Steinem, and she's got a history for the CIA. And oh my God, did I uncover some stuff. I mean, I managed to I have help here and there, but I managed to find magazines that you won't find online, books that you won't find online, things that Gloria Steinem has seen disappear, and she's had some stuff happen. And there's like loads of weird links with both of them. They're very much on the New York scene, and Gloria Steinem, someone who worked for the CIA, came from went to Harvard to work for the CIA, did all of these like Vienna Youth Festival and stuff, and trying to rally up sort of support against communism and all of that, and then went on to do the thing of being like, oh, I'm a reporter now, and I'm doing an undercover story about being a Playboy bunny, and oh, anti-sexy and silly. Oh, and now I'm a feminist. Ooh, and now I co-opt the whole feminist movement, push out all radical feminists out of the movement, keep it so it's a really bland, what Camille Paglia calls a Betty Crocker style of feminism, that doesn't allow for any changes and keeps the status quo, just as the CIA would want it, and creates a magazine called Miss Magazine, which kind of forges the female view very much for people. So it's very much a narrative set, and that's his girlfriend. They're both
that's
very
Ms. Magazine. No, that's Ms. Magazine, and you're also talking about the, see, here we go with the romanticization, excuse me, of of this time period, right? It was the freedom. It was the, the freedom of sexuality. It was the freedom of women. It was the Equal Rights Amendment. That thing was batted around. I remember that as a child, constantly being discussed. The ERA, the ERA, the ERA. I'm like, I see that term in baseball later. I said, what the hell? The Equal Rights Amendment, right? I didn't learn baseball till I was 6. I read about the ERA because my father had me reading newspapers when I was 3. But the ERA, it was like this weird transition, and she was clearly, in my estimation, an asset for the CIA the whole time.
Provably an asset for 10 years. Provably an asset between 1958-9 to 68-9.
Easily, right? But then after she's an asset, like Anderson Cooper, right? After he's trained at the CIA, he's magically on CNN for the next, 20 years.
Yeah.
But like she was magically like thrown into the center ring of the media circus after she's an asset. And with the old
you will love, I promise you will love the Gloria Steinem episode. If you love to, you know all of that information, the subjects, and this is what I try and make it. I'm trying to make it so that a beginner can come along and learn a load of information. Really, really taking the views that are being like co-opted or pushed out and hidden from view, trying to get them to look at everything within context and understand enough, and for experts to come along and look at it and say, oh my God, yes, that, oh my God, yes, that. It's got to have something for both to crave. And this is really important. It goes on. This is going to go on. So the first 6 episodes are out, but Stanley Pottinger wasn't only, already, if you want to go and read the Pottinger Identity, which is the first part of this series. The second part will be the Pottinger Supremacy, and the third part will be the Pottinger Ultimatum. That ends up with Jeffrey Epstein, right with Jeffrey Epstein. You can't get closer than with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, you can't get closer. The second one goes through, he was involved, even though he was involved in some really amazingly big legal stuff after leaving office in 1977, he was also involved central in Iran Contra and the October Surprise central, and that was for his buddy George H.W. Bush to get into office. That was really, he was the main man meeting and arranging all of the meetings that were happening in Europe with Casey and others, and that whole thing was set up by Pottinger and Cyrus Hashemi, and Cyrus Hashemi was his business partner, and he represented him as well. So he represented both Jamshid and Cyrus Hashemi. Now, smuggling guns in Iran Contra, this time funding and smuggling with the CIA buddies over here, is also Adnan Khashoggi and Jeffrey Epstein.
Of course.
So already Pottinger and Jeffrey Epstein meet, and Pottinger admits this later on to Bradley Edwards, and it comes up in Bradley Edwards, another lawyer, one of the main lawyers for Epstein victims. He admits that he shared an office during this period with Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow.
The reason why this is so important is Stanley Pottinger is one of the lead lawyers for the bulk of Jeffrey Epstein victims. He's had to step aside now. Oh, he's a bit old. Oh, no, now it's better. Now it's out. You better hide him. But there's something else, After he went into the FBI, and it might not have been FBI, but it was some sort of federal agency, were bugging Cyrus Hashemi's office and discovered all about Iran Contra. He was also involved in space research company and Gerald Bull and that stuff as well. But they had discovered about that, and so they outed Stanley Pottinger as being central to Iran Contra. It's all over them. It was in the New York Times. He goes and hides off in Mexico. And then his best friend takes office, George H.W. Bush. And he comes back and he becomes like a member of the Rockefeller Foundation. He becomes a member of the UN.
What a surprise.
And he reestablishes himself as a best-selling author. By the 90s, he is living in Palm Beach. In 1990, he buys his Palm Beach home. The same time, Jeffrey Epstein, within a couple of months, so Jeffrey Epstein's buying his Palm Beach home, and they're 500 meters apart. 500 meters. As the crow flies, they were close neighbors. Jeffrey Epstein and the lead lawyer for Jeffrey Epstein's victim. So that's the second part. The 80s, Iran Contra, space research, Arm & Hammer, in the case he did against Meade and other things, really interesting stuff. And then the third, of course, we get into the Epstein saga, because that is meetings in Boca Raton Starbucks with Jeffrey Epstein and Bradley Edwards discussing all manner of things for 8 years. 8 years. Unbelievable stuff. And Stanley Pottinger, the whole time in Brad Edwards' book, if you read Relentless Pursuit, number one, your eyes are bleeding, but number two, the worst thing, I'm being rude, it's not the worst book, but the one thing you'll notice is that Bradley Edwards makes it clear the entire time that he thinks Stanley Pottinger is the CIA, works for the CIA, is a super spy, does everything, knows everybody, can get anything done for anybody, and he still goes and forms a legal practice, Edwards Pottinger, where one of their first clients is, of course, Virginia Giuffre, the most recognized of
the victims.
Literally, as soon as she came back, that's when Stanley Pottinger introduced himself to Edwards. Hi, you might not know me, but I have something in common with you. I'm Stanley Pottinger, and off he goes. By this point, he's Stan the Man. By that point, he's Stan the Man. He starts off J. Stanley Pottinger, goes on John Stanley Pottinger, becomes Stanley Pottinger, and then he becomes Stan Pottinger, and then he becomes Stan the Man. Can do anything for anybody, get away with anything. So if you need the CIA to be all over the Epstein case and controlling everything, who do you get in apart from one of your top assets who has proven himself over years that he can slippery snake out of every situation, and he's been involved in everything. One thread that links. Yeah, they're not even tenuous links. They're him interviewing the director of the CIA and finding no conspiracy. It's him looking at the main evidence and having the choice of what they put forward. It's him deciding on all of the evidence which the FBI, can you imagine the amount of evidence that would have said Martin Luther King assassination was obviously a conspiracy, and he ignored it all. This is crazy. He's central to all of these things, and then goes on to be a CIA super spy, setting up Iran Contra and smuggling guns with Jeffrey Epstein. Oh my God. So it was an amazing story, an amazing journey, wrecked my life in many different ways. I can't even tell you. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm making it so that this first series, you can go read the Pottinger identity, and you'll have there's other things where I go through the source material for 3 hours with a group of people, with a couple of people. There's basically 6, 7, 8 hours of content within one article for people to consume and learn every single bit about each of the context to just a paragraph, just so that they can get like this massive wider understanding without having to do much work. They don't, the music will keep you with I try and make it so that it's edited to propel you forward, to make you want to know more. I've had to really work at my own skill at this, and I've every episode I'm proud of. And I mean, it's got a banging soundtrack, an unbelievable soundtrack.
Absolutely. Listen, all the way around, I want to tell you, I mean, I'm not just telling you this because you agreed to do my show. But I mean, I have told people, I've had people give me documentaries before. Here, I'm going to give you and they're very generous and they're very nice and everything, but sometimes I tell them my opinion and stuff, and all of a sudden they don't want to do my show. Because some people have done bad jobs. They have good information even, but it's a bad film. Sorry. You didn't do it right. You didn't vet your information. You did a bad job. Look, the information's great, but the film sucks. This is really a brilliant piece, man. Like, I was not aware that you did it all because I didn't pay attention to that part. I was going to ask you because it's really well done. The music is very cool. It's not like some massive major production that like just pulls you out of the situation. It actually pulls you into it. It's very mood generating. And you wrote all that too, huh?
Yeah, it's mimetic as well at times. So with the Martin Luther King intro, you've got like the famous scene of them pointing upwards at where the shooter supposedly is, and then kind of like as the sound goes, so does the camera, and kind of like I'm a musician, so I spent years writing songs and released loads of stuff.
And there's a visual rhythm here where the photographs, even when you're giving us a still, the photograph still continues to move so that it's in time with what it is I'm hearing behind it. It's synchronized like that, and also even the editing speed that changes here and there. When it does change, it has a rhythm to it that is comfortable. It's not like I would love
if I could find loads of people to work with, but I'm censored so much that I don't find anybody. So I have to learn. I had to learn how to do all of this myself if I was going to be able to do it. And I think really it just kind of, and I have to say the whole series I started a month and a half ago. Everything, writing the soundtrack, everything like that first, literally the first thing is I had the vision of what I needed to do. I'd already felt that one of the most important things that I need to do in the future is break up my work so it can be watched in long form and short form, and that the segments are full of knowledge and context, and give people a sense of understanding that they then feel confident about discussing the thing. And that's one of the most important thing about the realm of conspiracy, is people feel afraid about discussing because they don't have contextual knowledge and they feel out of depth. The best thing is to give people complete wings, give them knowledge that no one else has and will interest other people within.
Well, this is another compliment I want to drop on you, is that immediately, like, that's why I wanted to play that opening clip, because you're kind of bridging the gap here. You're giving us the very, I'll call it the pedestrian view, the very commonplace view of these things, the very recognizable clips like, I know exactly what I'm listening to. Even if I was somebody who watched, public broadcasting in America, I'd be familiar with some of the stuff that you're rushing at me. It's not all just, deep dive into the conspiracy realm. You've taken some of the pedestrian stuff, put it in there, and mixed it in so that we go on this journey, and it does exactly what you say it does, where you get an introduction. Look, somewhere along the line you can pick this up, right? So you're giving us a lot of different entries onto the bridge to get there, to take this trip with you. And that's the way I see it. It's well done.
If you're not interested in any of those bits, then the music and the feeling and the visuals, I hope, are enough to let people have like 21 minutes, 20. That's all. Each episode could be about 24 minutes in total. About 21 minutes with credits. Like that amount of time. If you even if someone doesn't like the subject, if you can get someone to sit through and start taking in some of this information, just learning one little bit is more than not knowing. And that's one of the oh man, I'm so excited about this because it's got its own momentum. I already did all the research because I mean, my articles are sourced up the wazoo. If you go and look at the Pottinger identity and count how many sources are in there and look at the quality of those sources, it'll blow your mind, because I don't put anything in an article unless I can prove it with something that is concrete. And so I've already done so much research on this, gone through this so much that I know it inside and out. But when I'm making these segments, I'm going on a journey where I used to think I knew subjects. I know Watergate, or I know Martin Luther King, or thing, and I go on that journey and I find clips and I look for everything and I find things I'm not expecting at all, and I go down rabbit holes I'm not expecting at all, and I discover the context of a situation. And usually it's not that hard to understand who James Earl Ray is. It's not that hard. You could be distracted by just looking at the main clips, the main things. Oh, look, he's in jail, he's in jail, he's in jail, he's in jail. Look, there's him with the rifle. But if you go and learn about who his family are, the people who were around in the case, and that's one of the interesting thing about the Martin Luther King case, the people who are actually surrounding, all of the people all had like characters galore. The people who owned the flop house where the shots apparently fired from, their characters, the people next door who run the Five and Dime, their characters, the ones down the road who Lloyd Jowers, who eventually claims to have been part of the conspiracy to assassinate Martin Luther King. Well, kind of, only if you give me immunity.
And the husband and wife who winds up, the husband becomes one of the main witnesses and all that, and meanwhile
and he was
other
one of the time. His wife, even though the clip isn't in it, I did watch a clip with his wife, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, they have no idea what they're doing. They're just looking for money. Most people, it seems. In that you can't tell what's true or not anymore.
And then she winds up getting stuck in a hospital and everything. I mean, it's a whole every stone you turn.
Yeah. When you got the kneeling man, that what's his name, Merrill McCulloch, the one, who's a CIA operator. He's a CIA guy.
Who's an informant who was with the invaders previous to that, and then whole bit. Yeah.
I mean, understanding the holes in the case and looking at it from that perspective, and seeing that also there's a very small clip that I thought that was very important, the Phil Donahue show, where you get to see Jerry Ray, James Earl Ray's brother. So you get to see what type of character he is. He looks a little bit like a low-level gangster, his character. But you get to see this really interesting moment where Phil Donahue asks people out loud, something they don't like doing anymore, who thinks this wasn't a conspiracy and who thinks this was a conspiracy. And you get to see that the people at the time, truly the ones who were closest to it, who had the most knowledge about the actual event because it was so close to them, they all had their hands up saying, yeah, there's a conspiracy. There's more than one thing going on. And even when you investigate the case, it becomes clear that I think James Earl Ray couldn't tell his whole story, because it would mean his brother gets arrested and ends up doing life in prison, and they still won't get a trial.
Well, there was a lot of leverage, and when he tried to get a retrial, that story, I don't know if you're going to include it in there, but that story is absolutely insane too. I mean, every single aspect of this case goes into bizarre directions. You end up with the TV judge Joe Brown getting involved at some point.
He's amazing. He's a really interesting guy.
I like it. Listen, he is a guy, you might not like him, but you got to respect the position he took, and he paid for it too. So they dropped the retrial on somebody's desk. This guy dies with the retrial on his desk, which means they're supposed to automatically grant it. They don't. They end up handing it to Joe Brown. Joe Brown wants to do ballistics tests, and they kick him the hell out of there. I mean, I'm shortening up the story.
In between, because in between is another attorney that dies who's about to put forward paperwork for a trial, and then dies as well. And then of course,
and then James Earl Ray dies, and then
it's unbelievable.
But most bizarre. And then what do we end up with? Well, we do end up with something interesting, which the King family did. I think it was Dexter and maybe Martin Luther III. But either way, some of the King family went forward with that civil trial, and that has an interesting result that nobody wants to talk about, where, indeed, and look, I argue with William Pepper's conclusions in some cases, but he kicked over a lot of rocks. Again, every time you kick something over in that case, it goes which is the most bizarre thing, and this is something I noticed about the JFK case as well. Johnny, and I want your take on this real quick, and we're going to conclude this pretty soon because I want people to be excited for the next 5 episodes that come up, and by the time we release this, it'll be right at that time. You'll be able to go on YouTube. You're going to put them all on YouTube, right?
Yeah, they'll be on YouTube, Rumble, and Rockfin, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th.
Exactly. So over the Christmas time, starting on the 22nd, we're going to see these episodes drop. So today, 19th. Okay, it'll be, and I'll have it out by tomorrow. But as I'm speaking, it's the 19th. So start to look for it as you guys pick this up. Go check it out. Only the first episode I'm looking at right now, but you guys need to see this, because if he's done this in the same way, the journalism is commensurate with the visual presentation and the audio presentation. This is a hell of a good package. I'm not just saying this because he's here. It's really great, and it is accessible. Even if you want to show this to friends, you want to watch this with other people. Oh, I'm into my conspiracy stuff, but I can only watch that on my own. No, you could put this on in front of other people. They'll recognize what's going on up to a certain point. They'll be able to relate to a lot of familiar things up to a certain point. But then we get into Johnny's specialty, which is, as he said, getting into things that nobody else does, and getting at people that nobody else does, and getting at some. So you getting the point? I think you are. Anyway, not you, John. I'm talking to the person I'm looking at on the camera. But here's the thing. So I want you guys to check it out, and I'm going to give you the links to, well, I'll give you the link to the first episode. But follow through and get the next ones. Maybe we'll add to them after, the post is up. And if you go back and check the show notes later, see, the dogs are excited behind me. I know you can hear puppies. I got 6 puppies in a box over here, and they're all, listen to them. You hear that, John? They're all excited. It is something to be excited about. It's a unique piece of work, and I've watched tons of documentaries on exactly this subject, exactly subjects revolving around many of these subjects. I see a bunch of clips in there with Jim DiEugenio, who I'm familiar with.
What a legend! What a legend! I like him. I like how he describes things. I don't agree with some of his conclusions. I don't agree with some of the sides he takes. But the way he describes things with enthusiasm, especially in the 2004 interview that I seen with him, it's really like he's got so much fire. Like he's vibrates me. He wants to tell the story, and I like that. I love that.
Well, in a long time, he's an interesting resource, because a long time he was not only writing his own stuff, but having other people write for him at Probe Magazine and now at Kennedy's and King, etc. I had 2 of his co-authors on the JFK Chokeholds book on the show last week. And it is really interesting work, and you have to involve this guy. in order to let him tell some of those stories, because he's been telling them so long. I mean, you know, it's sort of like if you could have had access to Mark Lane, you probably would have grabbed him too, because there's a guy who was involved in things, knew Dr. King, etc. Now, I know we got plenty of questions about, anyway, we'll leave that alone. Point is that there is something about the public presentation that's important, and I love this. This is a well-rounded thing that you put together here. So, okay, I've got questions, though, just a couple real quick. You know, the first thing is, once we go through this, okay, what is the overall point that you're making here? I don't want to make it sound like, so what's the point? But, I mean, why is this guy, you've described why he's important. He's at the center of all these different things. But what is it about this guy that caught your attention, that made you say, wait a minute, this is a guy who needs to be pushed into the light? Is there something, I mean, it's obvious with, you know, he's 500 feet away from Epstein's house. He's obviously involved in all these things. Oh boy, in case you missed it, the guy who was, you know, right there, Epstein's neighbor, winds up working for the legal process for his victims later on. Something wrong there. I think that's an ethical problem, maybe. You know, I'm being facetious, but the point is that all of this makes sense. But what is it that really got
you want it
to have to go for it? Yeah, tell me.
Okay. Well, first of all, I had to solve the riddle of Maria Farmer and why something had happened to me. And I went through this, and I went through this process and discovered all of this stuff. And it led to the cup dropping moment, you know. It led to the moment where I realized something so much bigger about the Epstein case that is extremely unpopular and was part of the reason that some of my previous relationships have had to end, because the people are not very happy about me saying this out loud.
Are you going to tell that personal story in this series?
No. Let's see where we go, because there is the fourth and fifth. I already know what they have to be. The fourth series I can't even talk about yet. The articles are called "The Road to the Takedown of Jeffrey Epstein," and that leads to the takedown of Jeffrey Epstein. So that leads to what I believe. I can present evidence to show what happened, and the Pottinger link is there, really strong all of the way through. But that's not, I mean, the real cup dropping moment, the real thing that blew me away and made me realize something that was grander, that is really unpopular, was that it did not make any sense that everybody says Jeffrey Epstein is a Mossad. I understand why. I understand the links and Robert Maxwell in the background and his Maxwell worked in every intelligence agency, and every intelligence agency worked with Maxwell. That was the way it worked. Eventually that caught up with him, and he was ended by one of those intelligence agencies because he had done too much work for other intelligence agencies.
Right.
You know, when you find out, like when Brian Mulroney, the Prime Minister of Canada, was called to the Ritz by him, and he's Robert Maxwell sitting there like the king with a brandy glass, and Mulroney sits down, and Robert Maxwell tells him, "No one knows this yet, but Margaret Thatcher's going to stand down tomorrow." And it's like he knows everything before everybody. He's there everywhere, all throughout. Yes, he is. But just because you're linked with him or your rise is connected with him in some way does not make you automatically the Mossad, because it doesn't make any sense. Stanley Pottinger made me understand that, because Stanley Pottinger is a deep, dark CIA man. And if you go back through the history, you then look at it and you say, well, wait a minute, Jeffrey Epstein was trained by the CIA, recruited by the CIA. He run guns in CIA operations with the CIA. He worked with the CIA. He was in the New York clique where everybody's in the CIA. All of the people who are linked with him are CIA, and then he starts running the East Coast of America for the CIA. So it looks like everybody wants you to say he was Mossad for a reason, because then you don't have to have congressional hearings and Senate hearings and all of those different things about activities on American soil. They're just saying, as soon as you say it's the Mossad, everything, all of that goes away. It's the perfect trick to stop anybody investigating the fact that every single person who gets on that plane is going to talk with the guy who's running the East Coast for the CIA. Then everybody, all of those people suddenly are somehow connected with the CIA. Yes, of course, Ehud Barak comes and bows the knee, because you have to if you're going to do any operations with Black Cube and other things on American soil. Then you need to kiss the ring of the CIA, and that's what Epstein was. And Epstein was the king of doing everything. There's not many fixers at his level, at Stanley Pottinger's level, at Hunter Biden's level. There's not many of those fixers around. There's only a few who have that ability to wiggle out of nearly every situation. And eventually they get something catches up with them most of the time, and it's usually their sexual stuff. Stanley Pottinger was in a sense lucky in that reason, because he stayed with Gloria Steinem for such a long time. But I know he was a randy guy, because the rumor has it, and from multiple people, and I've seen text evidence to support this, that she was in a relationship. Maria Farmer, who originally started this off, was in a relationship with Stanley Pottinger, even though he's 20 years her senior. And so it suddenly then that made a lot of sense. And the reason why they keep Maria Farmer at a distance yet still pay her off and don't include her in the case completely, that is really notable. But I think there's CIA fingerprints all over Epstein, and the whole time, the first thing the CIA did, as soon as they knew it was going to come out, as soon as they knew that this had to go forward, they'd already prepared it. They're the ones who were in control of the case. Epstein wasn't in control of just the one side, the prosecution, the defense. He was in control of the prosecution and the defense. He created both times. On the first occasion he got tried, and the second occasion. People think it's different in 2013 and 14. Well, 2014 really, when the second process really starts to build, with the return of Virginia Giuffre after she's interviewed by the FBI in late 2013 and returns in 2014. I think that's the way. And then the case starts up properly there. That was the decision. They were in and out talking with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein knew the game.
See, that's the major difference. That's the major difference and misunderstanding that people have. Like, they go, "Oh, organized crime and the CIA." Listen, there's a big difference here. When organized crime wants to fix a boxing match, they pay off one fighter to throw it. Okay? When the CIA wants to fix a boxing match, or when the intelligence agencies want to fix a boxing match, they pay both fighters. Okay? That's the way you do it. That's the big difference here, and that's the funny part. Like, I always felt that the whole reason why everybody went Mossad was simply Epstein. It was, well, Jew, therefore. That's what they kept doing. And, oh, look, Maxwell.
Yeah, it's a tool, though. That's the easiest tool for the CIA to use to just push out there. You don't even have to be a member of the CIA to be pushed out there. You can be just funded by over loads of people, all suddenly give you a load of money, and you got a load of money and you're able to say it over and over again. And the more you say it, the more you get rewarded. So, and everybody speaks the line. But there's loads of listen. This is when angel investors show up with, boxes full of gold bars, and it's some anonymous name that actually leads to nowhere, because guess what? Yeah, you were just funded by them. That's how this goes. I mean, when Bradley Edwards, let me just say quickly, when Bradley Edwards, one of the lead lawyers, met Pottinger and Bowies at their offices, it was the same offices of Darren Indyke, Epstein's lawyers. Bowies appeared on Epstein's notepad in 2005, I think it is, just before his arrest. There's loads of links there that show that the top level, the top fixers, the people, like this brought the man, Stan Pottinger, out of retirement. The man who was central to Martin Luther King, Wounded Knee, Watergate, who played a central role in the Orlando Letelier, domestic surveillance, who played a central role in Iran Contra, and many more things. This brought him out of retirement to do one last job. And it was to cover up the CIA's own mess by having both sides. And so that's the last article is called the Pottinger Ultimatum. And really the ultimatum was given to Jeffrey Epstein in 2004, 2005. If he did nothing, the consequences would be dire. Because if you think about the ratio of abuse, if he was having 2 to 3 massages a day, that's 2.5. Say for 10 years, that's 8,000 plus counts of assault. That's crazy time. You know,
Right.
who does open door prison cell? You know, left open. You set up a non-government, a non-profit
Work
inside
release.
the prison. Yeah,
Work
and
release.
give
Yeah.
yourself work release. None of that. The second time, they're still doing the same game. It's just he just co-ops all of the sides. He's amazing. Epstein, he is amazing. Yeah, they want to just paint him as just one thing. Yeah, he was a dirty pervert. We all know it, but he was so much more. So much more.
Well, and
CIA.
that's the last question I want to ask you, because now we've been well over an hour, and I told you we'd only run about an hour, but here we are. Here's the thing. Are we going to get to what in the hell is going on with Ghislaine now? Because everybody's got questions about this. Now, it seems like the story has almost died recently, right? Where, the alt media was very hot on it. The mainstream media got into it. I mean, for God's sake, the streaming services were putting out an extra Dirty Money documentary, right? Just to focus on her. And all of a sudden, poof, she's gone. Everybody was saying she's going to crack. She's not going to crack. She's going to wind up dead. Everybody had their speculations, and now nobody's talking about it. Are you going to get into the why and the what and where that's going in this series?
Maybe
I don't want you to tell me the details. I just want to know if you're going.
I mean, there's going to be a point when you enter into the 4th and 5th. You're deep dark in the den. You can't get out of the den, and the den is there's two heads of the main side. Maxwell and Epstein were just I mean, a fusion of genius, criminal genius, yes, but genius nonetheless. And Maxwell, I have to say, Maxwell is extremely protected because her other siblings have such high roles in in international espionage and intelligence. They're so in fingers in every single pie. No one dares cross the bulk of them. The Maxwells are a dynasty. They're going to keep being a dynasty.
There's that, and then I have the other impression in my mind, which is, the reason why nobody shot Nixon is because it was too soon to put a bullet in another president's head. You got to give time in between your assassinations. So therefore, there's no way that Ghislaine gets, suicided. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
All of it looks unlikely. All of it looks unlikely, just because I think there's this case. One of the whole points of these like first 3 articles that I wrote was to show this case is a house of cards that is set up to fall apart. So eventually, all they have to do, if they want all of their guys to get off everything, is have enough distance, like you say about the assassinations, enough distance between the time, and then let the house of cards fall by releasing one bit of information, undermines every single of the major victims. Pandemonium ensues, and the truth comes out eventually.
And it gives the appearance of organic, and maybe you can make another journalistic hero and say, this is the guy who actually broke the story, which it isn't. He was handed it somehow. But, pay no attention to that. You can create another journalistic icon, like they did with Woodward and Bernstein, right? And do that even though, okay. So we know where we're going.
Very quickly, one last thing.
Sure.
In 1976, it was Stanley Pottinger who he's interviewing either Woodward or Bernstein. I think it's Bernstein. Anyway, he's interviewing him. Mark Felt. Who was assistant director of the FBI and was Deep Throat. And he's interviewing him and he rumbles that he's Deep Throat. He realizes he is, and he offers to withdraw the question from the record so that no one will know that he's Deep Throat. And he tells Woodward, it must be Woodward, he tells Woodward afterwards that oh yes, I know it's him, but I won't say anything,
There you go. So look, you guys can go to YouTube and see the series for sure, and I'll give you the link there. But where can they what website should they go to get the articles directly, which obviously are a wink and a nod at the Bourne Identity, Bourne Ultimatum, etc.
Yeah.
Wink and a nod, not the same premise, but something like it. Anyway,
no, very much so. The first article is about his brother. Part of it is about his brother getting amnesia, or pretending to get amnesia, so he can traffic this girl and get away with it afterwards when he gets caught. So that's kind of like the Bourne Identity and the Bourne, the Pottinger supremacy. He's got that as well, and etc. Anyway, you could go to NEWSPASTE.com, which is my main platform, or johnnyvedmore.com, but NEWSPASTE has everything nicely arranged, and there's a load of articles there. I've been working for quite a while now. I've uncovered a load of different things. I've also got masses of media video up on both Johnny Vedmore and NEWSPASTE. YouTube and everything, so there's loads to explore. I've been creating for ages, and now, come support my work, and I will do more of it.
Exactly. No, and go to newspaste.com. That's both those words together, NEWSPASTE.com. Johnny Vedmore, look, if you don't know how to spell that, I'll spell it out for you. JOHNNYVENDMORE.
Oh no,
okay.
You got it wrong. It's VD.
I got it wrong.
VDMORE. I know. I like it. I like that you got it.
I'm sorry.
All right. I don't mind that you got it wrong. It's everybody gets it wrong. I've had a lifetime of it.
I'm sorry, man. Look, people screw up my name too, but don't worry. The links I put in the show notes will be accurate, so you can click on those guys. Okay, click on those directly, and it'll be right. And if anything else, but you can also go to YouTube and this is Searching for Stanley. That is, let's see, is that going to be the name of the whole series, or is that the name of the video? I'm screwed up there.
The first, Searching for Stanley, each one, Searching for Stanley Martin Luther King, Searching for Stanley Watergate, so the first series is Searching for Stanley, the Pottinger Identity, and the second is Searching for Stanley, the Pottinger Supremacy, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just trying to figure out how to put that together, but Searching for Stanley, if you just put that in a search at YouTube, you'll probably find it. But again, I'll put the link there, and I'll also give you the link to Johnny's Twitter, X, whatever the hell they want to call it. Mm-hmm. Your handle over there. If people want to contact you, I think people should want to seek to hire you, actually.
I'd like that, because I'm skint. You need help. Please.
Well, you're just a damn good editor and director, editor, all that stuff. This film is really well done. I mean, if somebody wants to come across with a decent piece of work, I think maybe, if they name a decent price, you might be able to, hell, I wish I could afford to hire you, because I would definitely have to make the videos. They're great things. So the video is really great. Obviously, I'm telling you, check out the rest of his work. That's great as well. The journalistic integrity matches the multimedia presentation. They are both smooth and great and wow, full of loads of context, interesting information, and stuff that, quite frankly, you won't get anywhere else. So JohnnyVedmore.com, NEWSPASTE.com, and I'll give you the links to all this stuff in the show notes. So with that all being said, the Ochelli Effect, let me turn down my music for a second. The Ochelli Effect is done here for a Tuesday. I'm producing myself here, and the video will end too here. Anyway, no matter who you are, where you are, how you're watching this, how you're hearing it, I want you to know that I'm merely Ochelli, and all of you are indeed the Effect. JohnnyVedmore.com, NEWSPASTE.com. Go Searching for Stanley on there or YouTube, and you might find some interesting stuff. Take care.